What's up, everybody? This is the Josh Yoder Show, and I'm your host, Joshua Yoder. Today, my guest is a long lost friend, if you will, the guy I met through professional wrestling as a referee, and he's been a long time legend of the business, if you will. We knew him as Nate Blazer, but you guys knew him as J Money. What's up, Money?
Oh, not much. I don't know if I call myself a legend. Um,
You are to me, my friend.
I hear that. I hear that word a lot. I guess there's always legends on the independents, somewhat, at least for the area.
No, man, but you are definitely one of the best, at least in my eyes, you are. And it's so good to see you, man. And thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, and it's good to catch up with you again because, well, we got to hang out the other night at the Summerfest show for HWF here at Lewistown, PA, and surprise, surprise, you came down and visited, man, and it was so cool to see you, man. And it's been so long since we actually got to meet each other. So, how does it feel to be back here in Lewistown?
That was good. It was fun. It's definitely changed a lot. It's weird for me to go to a wrestling show now and like walk through fans and them not really know who I am because it's been about probably 10 years since I've wrestled there. Um, so yeah, it was really good to be back. I wanted to go back because I hadn't been up there in so long. And see some of the people. I've been running into Matt at some other shows that I've been working around, and he invited me up, so I came up.
Yeah, man, I was just about to ask you. So, how did you and Matt get back in contact?
I've been working kind of backstage at Workers Pro in Pottstown, helping kind of develop talent there. He's one of the talents there. Usually I work with him on his matches a lot at that show. So, we got to talking, and I think even before that, he wanted me to come up, and the timing was never right because I do kind of enjoy my Saturday nights now that I don't wrestle. Um, but I think there's been more Saturday nights now where the wife wants to have me get out of the house, or maybe she's out of the house already anyway. Um, so yeah, I definitely will probably be making more appearances around the area for sure.
Oh man, I was so happy to see you. I had no idea you were coming. Like I was hanging out backstage, doing some reporting for Hometown Sports, and all of a sudden I see you walk in, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" I just gave you a big hug because I was so happy to see you because I haven't seen you in so long, man. So I was so happy to see you.
Yeah, I've seen you in a while, and I think it's been even longer since I saw your brother. I think you said he might have saw me last time on television or something. So it's been a while.
No, man, it was so cool to see. And what? How'd you think Saturday night was?
It was really good. I mean, you got to figure parking lot was so full. I literally missed the last parking spot when I was pulling in because I was like a couple minutes later after the show started. But yeah, the parking lot was full. The building was full. Like you had to. It reminded me of like the old days when I go to a nightclub, squeezing through people. You kind of had to do that there, which it's such a kind of a cool building, but you might outgrow it, pretty soon. So I don't know what the next steps there are, but yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job of drawing the crowd. The crowd was into it. That's what it really matters. It's a lot of guys will get bent out of shape about every like little thing of how somebody does something or how somebody takes something. Or to me, it doesn't matter as much as the crowd reaction. They're the ones that are paying. They're the ones that we're entertaining. As long as everybody's safe and it's believable, the crowd's happy. That's what you want.
No, absolutely. And then it was definitely a blast to catch up with you. And we told some of these old stories. And many people are wondering how we first met. I was a referee when we first, well, actually, before I became a referee with you guys, I first met you because we met at remember the Armory?
Yeah, yeah. I like that building too.
Yeah, that was a great building. And it was the last show before I joined in as a ref. And I got to see you guys because you were part of a team called That 80s Team, which was a great tag team. And and you guys were out handing out, autograph photos, and you said you had like one left. So I walked up to you and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have it." And you handed it to me. You guys autographed it, and it was one with you, your partner Petey, and you guys had a valet named Sonny. And I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, "Oh, you guys worked with Sonny?" He goes, "Yeah, this was before she went to rehab."
Well, which time, right? Not to shoot on her, but she's paying her dues now. But yeah, that was I want to say that might have been 2012. We wrestled Zero Tolerance in Lebanon, and they had Sonny come in, and Sonny was put with us as our manager for the night, the guest manager. And at the time, you know, when I was say 11, 12 years old, I had at least two Sonny posters on my wall in my bedroom. Like she was the childhood crush. Like imagine, people growing up and they're fantasizing about Tom Cruise or you know Jonathan Taylor Thomas or guys like that. And I actually got to work with my first like celebrity crush. So it was well, maybe not the first. Paula Abdul probably came before her, but once I reached that puberty age, I would say she was probably my first crush for celebrity.
Yeah, was she fun to work with?
Yeah, yeah, she was very straightforward, very business. Like, what do you want to do? Let's do it. Um, I think she was a little bit, um, I would say a diva-ish, but in a way, I heard, from some other people that, she would want to like an upfront parking spot. It's like, dude, we're in a city. Like, there is no upfront parking spot. There's no like special VIP parking in this city. So I think, and that could have been like, who knows what she was promised, because I know at that point, I think sometimes booking some of the women went through another booker that would get them uh, to come to Rob shows. Rob would still be the guy that's, paying and everything and running it. But there was another guy that wasn't usually, I don't know if he had a thing for some of the women wrestlers. Obviously, he probably did. Who doesn't? Um, but yeah, he would set up these, you know, hookups so we could have people like that at our shows. And so I think maybe he promised her something. Who knows?
I never know, unfortunately, with the indie circuit. But let's get you into the indie circuit. What got you into pro wrestling?
Kind of watched it all my life, as long as I can remember. You got the new Masters of the Universe movie that's out right now. Like, I think I can remember being a fan of that show as a little kid, like probably, I don't know, like probably 2 or 3, 4 years old. Loved Masters of the Universe. Turn on the TV and there's a guy on television that looks like He-Man. He's live action. He moves around. He talks to the fans like they're a part of his team and his family. Like, that's of course Hulk Hogan. So like looking at that, I think that's kind of what drew me to it a little bit was the you know here's a real life comic book He-Man person, and he's fighting for everything that's right in the world. Um, so that kind of drew me in at first. And then of course you see, more of the characters and more of the, wrestling, and, I loved it. And I think up until a certain age, I didn't necessarily want to do it because I felt like, man, I don't want to have to be fighting big guys like every month. It's like, that's just crazy. Like Hulk Hogan has to fight these big guys every night. I don't want to do that. Like that, and not really understanding what it was. But once I got to know what it was, I was like, man, I want to do that. So that's what I did. I found in high school we did talent shows, and in the talent shows I would set up like some kind of makeshift ring, and we would do little wrestling events with my friends for high school talent shows. And eventually there was a wrestling school that was opening up not too far from me when I was about 17. I was going into my senior year in high school. Um, what many people don't realize is like a year before I started training for wrestling, I was wearing a back brace. Like my back was not in the best shape. I had a spinal disease called Charman's disease, which is where your vertebrae try to wedge together and they don't necessarily care about what's in between them. So I had upper back. wedge, so I had to wear a back brace for probably about 9 months or so, almost a year. Um, Once everything kind of got settled down, they put me into physical therapy in the swimming pools, and so I'm doing aerobics with old people in the swimming pool for physical therapy. Eventually graduated to lifting and doing stuff outside the pool. Then I got into running, dropped about 90 pounds, and made sure that I was in the condition that I wanted to be to become a pro wrestler. And so I started training my right before my senior year of high school, around June of 2000.
So who would you find to help train you to get into professional wrestling?
I started this one place that the guy doesn't run it anymore, but he's in Mechanicsburg. He worked with some other guys like in the past. He wasn't really a wrestler though; he's a manager. So it was kind of one of those things where like he was trying to run a school, but he really relied on some of the guys that were coming in to help kind of mold us and at least train us a little bit while they were there. So at that point, I probably learned a little bit from him, a little bit from, well, I'd say a lot from Johnny Graham. There's a guy named Tommy Otto that came in too, and then of course Rob Knox just came in there a couple of times as well. And I can remember the first night he was there. We were doing a tag, kind of a tag match training, and he called something for me to duck. I didn't hear him, and he clotheslines me right in the face, and I go down and he's like, "You need a minute?" I say, "No, I'm ready to go." It's like, "All right, you tough son of a whatever," and I was like, "Okay." So we kept going, and we got to talking afterwards, and I think at that point I was 17. I was about 2 weeks away from being 18, so we was talking about what I'm going to do once I can wrestle legally in the state of Pennsylvania. His birthday was actually a week before mine, so it was kind of a coincidence there because he was like, "Oh, mine's this Friday," and so we kind of got chatting about that. Um, Wrestled there with that trainer for. He ran some shows. I actually got him set up with Marysville to do some shows there. My first match was January 2001 at the Lions Club. A couple of days before my first match, I got dropped wrong on a impaler DDT and separated my right shoulder. So I basically popped my whole collarbone right out of the shoulder joint.
Ouch.
And I was still in high school at this time too. So um, I didn't tell my mom what had happened because I felt like if I did, she wouldn't let me wrestle in the match. I didn't go to the doctor. The only people that knew was my opponent, maybe a few other wrestlers, and the promoter Johnny Glitter, and my high school sports trainer knew because she was who I would go to in between my class periods to get heat and ice on my shoulder. So she kind of helped me a lot to make sure that it was at least functional for the night. And they put me in the main event. How many people can say they were put in the main event their first show? I didn't. I wasn't ready to be in a main event. I didn't deserve to be in a main event, but I think he felt because Marysville was pretty close to my hometown, which was Duncannon at the time. You know, he always had the idea of like the home boy shine kind of thing, hometown boy shine. So that's what they did. The match was horrible. And after the match, they had ideas about everybody jumping me after the match too. So not only did I have to go through the match, I had another guy come out, powerbomb me, and another guy came out and did something to me, and it was just it's like everybody beats up Nate when he's already got a broken shoulder night. So and at the event was actually Rob actually was watching the event. His brother Terry Ches, I'm sure you remember that too.
Oh, I remember Ches. God rest his
Yeah,
soul.
yeah. So Ches didn't know me yet. Ches kept yelling, calling me Billy Pie Face because I looked like Billy Gunn. My face was like a little bit more sunken in. Um, but yeah, it was bad. I remember people saying, "I want my money back," and some woman goes, "Yeah, at least half of it." It's like, yeah, you saw one like not so great match. I mean, maybe there was others. I didn't watch the whole show, but yeah. By the time we came back, I think I had my second match there, maybe in March, and then there might have been another match or two that I did for him. And then it's funny, whenever this is something I learned very early, that whenever you're a threat to people, as far as like them getting ahead or them being looked at a different way, like there's a target on you. And there definitely was a target on me because um, there was car rides where things were said they weren't supposed to be repeated anywhere. That's a rule. You know, the car rule is whatever's ever said in the car stays in the car. And none of it was bad. None of it was bad at all. It was just I was asking somebody why the guy that ran the wrestling school wasn't with off of the Wild Samoan anymore, because that's where he came from. He lived up there still, and I'm like, well, why would he come down here and open a school up um, when he lives in Hazleton and he works with AFA? Because that's what he sold us on. Well, the one guy gave me kind of the backstory about how, he was kind of doing some shady stuff to AFA. AFA kind of kicked him out. Um, and then he came down to start his thing down here. And I said, oh, okay. But I guess just me asking that made Johnny Glitter flip out. So he sends me a message on email about how, like, you know you're too green to be asking stupid questions, and you know well, I'll blackball you from this business. You'll be a nobody just like you are now, kind of thing. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll take my lumps, kind of thing, if I did something wrong. And his fiance called me and said, hey, why don't you come down here to the school and talk to him? So I went down to the school to talk to him, and I know, like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have been asking that at the time. Um, but I know who went back and told him that I asked that. So that kind of really opened my eyes early on in the business of be careful what you say around certain people, because certain people may twist your words, or they may, maybe they're not twisted, but either way, you can't trust, everybody. So I found that out the hard way pretty early on.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. That's if there's one thing I'm not big on pro wrestling business is really the politics and people just jumping behind each other and who can stab who in the back. And it's like, really, guys, like we're just trying to entertain people.
Yeah, yeah, and I never got it. I mean, it's like you want to stab me in the back so you can go, like, wrestle in front of 50 people. Like, is it really that important to you? Like, that you'll take out somebody else's dream because you want to be able to wrestle in front of 50 people and be in a main event? Like, come on, man. Um, so yeah, I went out, talked to him, um, we chatted. He was, kind of started, kind of just belittling me a little bit. And I'm kind of like, okay, I'll take it. And he goes, you're gonna go in that ring and you're gonna bust your ass every week. And, if I think you're worthy enough at some point, I'll put you back on my shows. Like, you're not gonna wrestle anywhere else. You're gonna do this. And, like, at the time I was like, okay, it is what it is what it is. Um, and he finishes the speech off with, and if you ever do something like this again, you're done. And he said, not only are you done, I'll make sure you're done. I'll have somebody break your neck in the ring. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I can't work around this guy, because once you break that trust level of somebody trying to hurt you in the ring, you're never going to feel comfortable. You're not going to, trust people. And it made it tough for me to trust people for a while. Like, seriously, like every match, I always had, like, my guard up. And maybe that's why some people think I was an asshole sometimes. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can swear on here or not, but you can cut it out. Can you swear on here?
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah, maybe some people thought I was an asshole early on, but a lot of it was just me keeping my guard up because of what I went through, within the first 8 months of being in the wrestling business. Like, I almost left. Like, I was almost done with wrestling, because when that shit happened with him, I was like, man, this is how the wrestling business is. I don't like it. I don't want to be a part of it. So, like, I
No,
literally, like, was done.
no, that's fair. I mean, because it was the complete opposite when I came in. Because like when you talked about people like threatening to hurt you in the ring, if somebody did that, and like well, at least when I was there, and like even to now, if someone would went and go into the business for themselves, they would not be welcomed very much backstage, and they would have been taken care of real quick.
Yeah, and I don't even know if anybody would even do that if a promoter asked them to do it. But But at that time, I mean, at that time, I'm thinking, okay, well, people are gonna just throw me under the bus to, you know, get a spot on a show that's a little bit higher up on the card, so why wouldn't they do something like that? But yeah, I mean, it's different to say, hey, I'm gonna have somebody, beat you up, you know, okay, bring it on. But if you're into the ring and you're trusting somebody with your body and you give them your body to pick them up and they drop you on their head on purpose, like that's the messed up situation there. Like that's something that is kind of unforgivable, I think. Um, but yeah, once I heard that, I was kind of out. I thought everybody was like that. Um, there was Johnny Glitter tried to call my house a couple times, try to smooth it over, get me to come back, and my mom was answering the phone, and she's telling him, hey, you really pissed him off, like you can't talk to people the way you did, man. And he's like, I know, like just I was trying to be tough. I didn't mean that I was going to actually have him hurt. I was just trying to be disciplined to him, and he I just kept putting him off. Wolfman called me too because I had actually gone to some shows with Wolfman while I was still training there, and he was like, "Hey, he's changed. Talk to him." I was like, "No, man. Like once you break that trust, I can't trust you again. I can't do that. Like I just can't." So, so I was kind of done there for a minute until I was talking a little bit to a guy named Fumar. That was the guy that I asked questions to early on. He's like, maybe we can start wrestling around the area. Um, and he had, kind of been synced up with Rob and a couple other guys around the area. And Rob sent me an email. It was weird because the email at the time, how email addresses weren't really your real name. Like there was some kind of like made up name in the early 2000s, like, Transformers 27 at yahoo.com, something like that. I get an email from a Rob Noxious 123, and I'm thinking, man, that sounds like a fake email address. So I was very cautious at first answering it because I'm thinking this is probably Glitter trying to like, get to me. And so I answer the email. He says, hey, I heard that, that you had some trouble with Glitter, but you guys kind of worked it out or something. And I was like, no, we didn't work anything out. I said, I told him I was done. That's a part of the story I missed there was after that night when he said that he'd have somebody break my neck. I went back in the ring, worked out with Johnny Graham, who didn't see that conversation. Um, After I worked out with him, I went home. Um, I still had tickets to sell for his upcoming show. So I actually made it a point to come back the following week. Oh, sorry.
No,
There
it's
we
all
go.
good.
I actually made it a point to come back the next week, and give him all his tickets back that I didn't sell. But I had a teacher come with me that one of my high school teachers, he was a very accomplished martial artist. So I thought, just in case he has a bunch of guys there, because when he was talking all this shit to me last time, he had a couple guys around him doing it. Um, I just want to have him there in case shit goes down. So I met him. We went over together. He stayed in the car. I went inside and said, "Hey, I'm done. Here you go." And that was it. Um, no drama or anything with that. But I heard afterwards he told people that he kicked me out, and I always have like a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for Cobra because Cobra early on he also was there. That's where he came from originally. The manager Cobra. He spoke up and said, "You didn't kick him out. There's no way you would kick him out."
Oh,
Like
I remember Cobra.
he,
Yeah.
he smelled the bullshit, and like then he got in touch with us, and later on I got back working with him, but yeah, so Rob sends me the email and I said, no, nothing's worked out. And he says, well, hey, opening up a wrestling school soon. If you want to come out, work out, help me set up the ring, you're welcome to. So I think a couple of days later I did, talked to him on the phone a little bit, heard him, he's feeding his baby Haley, who at the time was a baby, laughing about how she's not taking the food. And like, I'm like, man, this guy's he's a real guy. Like he's not trying to be shady. He's not trying to be whatever. He's a real guy. So, um, so we went out. helped him set up the ring. It was actually a ring that he had got from Penn State, where they used to run shows up at Penn State. And the ring was nice bump, which the ring at Glitter's building was, he had some guy build him a ring that had no idea what they were doing. It was like hitting concrete. So it was nice to have like a ring that, didn't feel like it was burning up your lungs every time you took a bump.
You actually feel like there was a give to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you're ever taking like a deep breath and like cold air, like that's what every bump took felt like in that ring. But the ring that Rob had was really nice. Wasn't easy to set up because it's all like nuts and bolts, but really good bump. And once I started training with him a little bit, he said, "Hey, we've got some shows with LWF. Do you want to come? Wrestle? I could probably get you on the show." I said, "Yeah, sure." So went over, wrestled with LWF, which LWF was kind of Glitter's rival, believe it or not. They did have rivalries back then, and they just kind of like, the promoter, I think at the time, he liked it because it was kind of like an FU to him because he took one of his better students. And I went over there, wrestled Tommy Idol, my first match. He was one of the guys that would come in to the other school with me. And I really kind of learned spots, a little bit of how to put spots together at that point, because you kind of learn from your failures. Because in that match, there was a way that I was kind of compartmentalize compartmentalize. Is that the word? Compartmentalizing.
Yes.
I was compartmentalizing different parts of the match as like a spot one, spot two, spot three, not necessarily like certain keywords. So when I get out there, we're doing fine, doing whatever. It comes to some point where he's running at me and I totally blank. And luckily he cuts me off and does something. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, that's because in my mind I was thinking, okay, this is spot three. And then I'm like, well, shit, what is spot three? I don't remember what spot three is. So I kind of learned there that I can't necessarily work that way. I have to probably figure out, maybe like simpler ways to do things, like a tackle drop down hip toss. That's a big spot. It's a spot, but it's, a couple words. It's easy to say that real quick. So I kind of learned a little bit how I need to work and how I should work in that match. That's the thing with a lot of guys today. It's like you can get all these athletes from, all these colleges and have them go, training with the best in the world at WWE, but you really don't get the experience until you actually get in the ring and work in front of a crowd. So you got to have that pressure. You got to have that ability to switch things if things aren't working right. Like it's just a different things you got to pick up actually in front of a live crowd. I mean, it's good that the guys are getting like every Tuesday night kind of thing. But maybe the NXT guys maybe need to go back to doing like house show rounds. I think that would probably benefit them a lot. Just to
Yeah.
get more reps.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed. Like when I got to hang out with you at shows, or if you ever came to training, you were always helping us out, like teaching us that, like, it's okay to have like these spots, but if you don't know how to work to them and work psychology, they're really useless. You always try to keep it simple with us and with your matches.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my matches towards, I would say, the last like 5 years of my like active wrestling, I don't really do too many things. Like I just try to mainly entertain the crowd, and you know, we would do some spots. Like there would be some matches where some guys I know could handle more spots, or maybe those guys are spotty, so we can do stuff together and kind of work off each other. But I think regardless of who I worked with, I could adapt to it and make it entertaining, whether I'm helping somebody get a little bit better or they're helping me get a little bit better or we're both helping each other. Um, so I think that's something that, even today in my current career, I feel like I can work with almost anybody. And I think that that's what kind of made me very useful, I would say, when it comes to wrestling shows.
Well, yeah, one of my favorite moments and I got to work with you as a referee when we went back to the Armory, you got to wrestle Al Snow. which I was well, you know me, I was always a nervous wreck. Didn't want to screw up or anything, and getting to work with Al Snow was not making it easy. But knowing that you were there and the way you guys were talking to me and how you want me to do it, you're like, it's all good, just keep it simple, and and it was a lot of fun to do that match.
Yeah, and there was more stuff that I wanted to do, and I was like, we don't need to do the extra stuff. Like, so I was like kind of doing the extra stuff for him because I'm smaller than him. I wanted to make sure like he wasn't he didn't look bad. So I'm like, I could do this, and then I could do this. Like, you don't need to do both of those things. Just do one of them. I said, okay. Normally I would have done one of them, but I'm just thinking in general because he's a bigger WWE guy. He's going to take a lot more abuse to get him down, kind of thing. But he was cool about it. He kind of saw me as a equal competitor in the match, and we kind of worked it out.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it was a really fun match, and especially my older brother got to see me for the first time. My twin brother you remember my twin.
Yep.
Yeah, he always would come to the shows because I was refing and stuff. But then with my big brother who lives in New York now, was he finally got to come down with a buddy, and they got to see me ref that match, and I was like, man, that was really cool to see. And I still have photos of that. That was such a cool memory, and I appreciate you helping me through that match.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it's one of those things where I think at that point I was starting to get a little bit more deeper level of experience. Um, I want to say I might have just done the Ring of Honor camp not too long before that match too. So I was kind of trying to put in some of the things that they were looking for in some of those matches too, because I'm kind of thinking every match is the opportunity to record and get that match out there to people to possibly book you. So every match I try to at least record or and also kind of make it the best that I could be, just because I wanted more content so I could get more bookings.
Oh, that's right. I remember you talking about that. You said about wanting to do one of those Ring of Honor training camps. And this was before, they got, bought out by AEW for those of you that don't know. But man, what was that experience like for you going for the Ring of Honor camps?
It was a little nerve wracking. It's kind of like it's very weird because there's a level of you that I wouldn't say that there's like a mark level to you, but there is a level of you where some people only want to hear the good stuff. You know, oh, it's positive because this guy said this about me. Um, but then there's the other way where some people tell you what you need to work on. And the good thing is a lot of the stuff they told me I need to work on, I knew that. Like stuff like, my body and my appearance and, my gear, that kind of stuff. First day was long. I think it was like probably a 12-hour day of they broke us up into two groups. We went out and did one group did some ring work on the first day, the other group did promos on the first day. My first day I did mostly promos. Um, and that's where I killed it, I think, on the promos because I had kind of taken on a new kind of type of character, which was kind of more like an Arn Anderson style, old school type of wrestler. Guy that wasn't there to be a star, just a guy there to make money and hurt people, kind of thing. Um, and I threw that away, threw that across in the promos. And I my first promo that I did there that day, I didn't do it on anybody in general. A lot of the promos were like talking about, when I get you in the ring, we're gonna do this and that. My promo was more about introducing myself, and how I'm gonna change the sport of professional wrestling. That was another key phrase that I threw in there. The sport, it wasn't a business; it's a sport. Which I felt Ring of Honor it was probably one of the companies that did kind of look at wrestling more as a sport because there was less, like a lot less hokey stuff and
Yeah,
very competitive stuff.
it's one of the reasons why I liked Ring of Honor back then so much was I always liked it as like a sport like they did in Japan.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, they have promos too. I think that's Japan has them too, but I can't understand them obviously, and probably neither can you. But yeah, they're definitely more like a sport, I would say, when it comes to professional wrestling. When you're comparing them to like a WWE at that time, or even TNA at that time too. But the camp had some guest coaches. One of the coaches, Brutal Bob Evans, always, somebody that gives great advice to wrestlers. And a guy that's like kind of gone through a lot. Like he's been wrestling, I don't know, like 20 plus years, 25 plus years, probably. He did extra work for WWE in the 90s. And, I think he might have been over 40 when he first did his Ring of Honor camp. So, like, here's this guy over 40, like, getting a job with Ring of Honor as an active wrestler. So you know, at the time, I think I was like 30, 33 or so. So I kind of looked up to that in a way. And he had some guys that he'd bring with him. Like Congo was really cool. One of his guys that he traveled with. Um, but yeah, he had the Bob Evans was there. They had Adam Cole who was a guest coach. Mark Briscoe and Jay Briscoe came in one day towards the end. Roderick Strong and Jay Lethal were there too. I think everybody else. I mean, QT Marshall was there. There was a lot of guys there. Um, yeah, there's a lot of guys that kind of came by, especially on the last day and towards the end. But anyway, the first day you go in, do the promos. Second day, well, first day you do the promos, then you go out. At the end of the night, they did a series of matches. So they book you with somebody to do matches. And my first night, they put me with Carmelo Hayes. I think his name back then was Christian Casanova. He was about 6 months into the business. So he was a little bit
He was
just
a
kind
little
of like,
green.
he was a little green, and maybe I didn't know how knew he was to it, because there were some things that I called out to do in the match, and I think there was a lot of miscommunication, probably more on my part. And then I like panicked and wanted to end the match soon, so we ended the match way too early, and that was my fault. I made that call. Um, he was respectful, went along with it. Anything I wanted to do, because I guess he kind of looked at me as the veteran of the match. Looking back, I'm like, man, I should have just like let him do some of his shit, and we can you know make it kind of a more of a mutual thing rather than me spitting out what we should do. Um, so that was a regret for sure. Because the next day I saw him do a match with somebody, and he did really well. So to me, I was like, man, that's my fault. If that guy can't do well, with me, then that's my fault. But the next day I did well too. So it's kind of like, well, maybe some people just don't mesh well. So I always look back to like Mr. Perfect and Shawn Michaels. You would have thought that match would have been amazing,
Yeah.
uh, but it wasn't. They just didn't, they just didn't have the chemistry to work together that well. So, and I don't think that we didn't have chemistry. I just think that we just didn't know what each other could do yet. And it was like at that level, that match could make or break you having a career, like a real career. When WWE, Ring of Honor, TNA, millions of dollars on the line.
Well, I want to talk, yeah, and I want to talk about that for a minute, especially on the indie circuit, because one of the things that I've learned, well, and from you guys, especially like from you, Rob, Zarb, and all those great guys. Shout out to Rob and Zarb as well, and also Mark Mess, definitely Mark Mess. You guys had always told us that when you guys work with someone, don't get angry if things don't go well, because you may not mesh well with the person yet. And
Yeah.
maybe the next time, how was that mindset for you to help people throughout the independent circuit?
I think with the independence, it was a little bit easier because I didn't necessarily, if it didn't turn out great, it was just one show. Like, I think when I go to things like, the camp, I felt like that was one opportunity I might not ever get again. So at the time, there's that stress level that's on you, because it was a camp that generated people that, went on to make millions of dollars. Like Damian Priest was at the camp with, the camp that I was at, and look where he went. So it's kind of like in my eyes, I saw that as an opportunity. Here's my opportunity, and being, you know, mid 30s, I'm like, this is it. If this doesn't happen now, it's not going to happen. So yeah, that was more me kind of having a lot of pressure on myself. I think sometimes, but on an indies thing, helping guys through a match, if I know that a guy's green, if I know like what they do and know what they don't know, I can make it work. I think sometimes you don't always know that though. So you kind of gotta ask questions, and I think some guys get offended when you ask, well, how long you been working, who you're trained by. Like guys start getting defensive when you ask that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things. I think a lot of the young people in the business, especially if they don't go into like say WWE or AEW or any of the big promotions right away. I wonder how if it affects them mentally, where it's like, hey, it's okay. This is where you learn, and this is where you get better. Like
Yeah.
how do you how do I want to ask this? Like, how do you express this to younger wrestlers nowadays on the independent circuits? Be like, hey, it's okay. It's like, I guess in a way I'm asking, like, how do they try to stay mentally tough? That is.
I don't know. I don't know how they do it today. I know back then, like I said, I always looked at every opportunity as my last. So it was hard for me mentally, I think, to accept when things didn't go the way that I wanted them to. And there's been times where I, probably lost my cool with people, because something didn't work out right or whatever. Um, I never hurt anybody though. But yeah, there's definitely been times where I've, you know, maybe raised my voice a time or two at some people that, because something didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. But a lot of it's communication, and that's something that I learned as I got older. You know, not everybody takes this as serious as I did. Um, and not everybody should. It's one of those things. It's still like an expensive hobby is what we call it on the indies sometimes because there's not as much money there and you're paying more sometimes to get to a show than what you make. When you throw your gear into it, all that stuff, it adds up. So yeah, I kind of took it maybe more serious than others did, and that's probably my fault more than maybe others, but I think as long as people, keep people safe. Now, if somebody, does something dangerous, that's dumb. Yeah, that's a problem. Um, but somebody just missing something or forgetting something, I mean, it happens. I mean, it probably happens on Monday Night Raw a couple times a night, so it's still happening.
Yeah, no, and like you said, it's always about adapting too. Like I personally like the more serious style of wrestling, when I watched as a kid, but I also don't mind comedy. So maybe like you said before, I think people should just try to find ways to adapt it to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Like I always try when I knew who I was going to wrestle to, I try to look them up on the net, try to figure out things that they do, or if I know that I'm going to be working a program with somebody at a promotion, I might start to watch some of their stuff just to see what they do in the ring. Like that was my thing early on, is I could help guys, kind of just build out a match knowing what the guys already did. Um, like guys used to say it's a night off to wrestle me early on in CCW, but
Which
because I
is
could just
true. You were
I could just
definitely
figure out
right.
their moves and figure out what they wanted to do in the match. Like we had a guy that Lobo Loco. I'm sure you've met him before, but him and I worked a program like I think in 2003, and like I knew all of his moves. We put the match together with all of his moves. We did everything, and he was like, I didn't have to do anything. He's like, I just did what you told me to do. It's like I knew what you did. Like I see your moves, so just throw them in there. And at that point, my matches were cookie cutter too, where like in the match, I work heat, eventually work the figure four, feed to my manager to get, the leverage. Eventually the ref will catch us, flips it over, come back, cut off. Like it was just simple cookie cutter, matches. So, which at the time I felt like these should be better, but when I look on TV, like that's what people like, right? Like they like something that's familiar. They like stuff that makes sense, that flows good. Um, so I think when I look back, I'm like, man, I should have did more of that kind of stuff because that's what they're doing on TV now. A lot of cookie cutter type of, that's how you get known. Like that's why people chant certain things. People do their moves or whatever. So
Yeah, well, you definitely are. You definitely were easy to work with, and yeah, I remember Lobo. Shout out to Lobo.
yeah,
Well, and honestly, that's how I looked at you. That's how a lot of us looked at you. You were like a guy. They were like, "Oh, it's a night off." You definitely were a night off kind of wrestler. And if you don't mind me asking, was that something you took pride in?
um, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, everybody didn't mind working with me, which I liked. I think sometimes maybe I should have pushed a little bit more for to have like something even bigger than that. But I think at the time, it's all about highlighting people's strengths, and that's what I tried to do in a lot of those matches. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess there's a sense of pride in it. Yeah.
no, I definitely enjoyed it, and working with you as a ref, and training with you and all that. And one of the things that I've wanted to always ask you, and maybe the fans here always were wondering, how'd you come up with the name J Money?
So when I started, well, before I got into wrestling, I kind of like the Raven character. So I was watching the Raven character a lot, like going into WCW and all that. And I think a lot of it might have been too because like that's an easy wardrobe, like it's easy to dress up like Raven. So that was part of my thinking too. Um, but I just kind of was drawn to that character a little bit, and I thought of a character that was going to be similar to his, and his name is going to be Johnny Doe, like John Doe. Um, so when I started wrestling, I used that name. But we did a different gimmick because I kind of resemble like a Billy the Kid type thing. So they did the Young Gun Johnny Doe originally, and when I had left the original guy I was training with and went to LWF, I was like, well, I got to figure out like something different to do, like gimmick wise. And I don't know who it was. Somebody must have said something about dough meaning money, like so. I kind of started transitioning to that, to like a J Money Johnny Doe character, which was a guy from Atlantic City, rich gambler type guy. And then I kind of evolved into J Money, and then you know, kind of evolved from there into you know more of a gimmick of if you book this guy, you're gonna make money kind of thing. Um, so yeah, that was where it came from. Rob actually coined it one day. He said, just called me J Money out of nowhere because of the Johnny Doe name, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. It's kind of a little bit more catchy, and I noticed when I started using it, it was easier for people to remember. I always think like a lot of the wrestling names, there's reasons why they might spell them differently, like because it's just a little bit easier to remember that name when spelled this way or said this way. Um, so that was kind of where it evolved. And then eventually I added the Joey money to it at some point because when I went to wrestle somewhere, there was already a J. And I was toying with the idea of being um, Joey Money anyway, actually from Lobo Loco. He used to call me Joseph Money in the back when we'd be, going around events. And I was kind of like, I kind of like that, like a Joey Money, like Joey Numbers. Taz used to talk about Joey Numbers. You know, kind of feeding more into that. Maybe the mafia type gimmick in a way, but not mafia, but maybe casino. Movie casino type of way. So yeah, that's how it evolved. And then later, I think I added the Magnum because with the '80s team, we're trying to look at different names that kind of fit more of the '80s style characters, and that's where the Magnum money came from.
Yeah, dude. I also loved when you were part of that '80s team. You just like you were making all these '80s references, like 16 Candles and all. How'd that all come together?
I think it was like a mutual thing. Pete, I think might have had the 16 Candles idea. I know I had the Hill Valley idea from Back to the Future, so we come out from Hill Valley. Um, we try to slip different things in there. I think eventually, like originally when we started, it was kind of a thing with Snuka, because Snuka said he was going to bring the old school to the match, and we were kind of like, well, what's more old school than that '80s team? Kind of like from that show, that '70s show, and kind of evolved it. I mean, originally it started out a little, just two guys put together, and then eventually we started to kind of make it more like, okay, what was big in the '80s? Like hair bands, rock bands. Like, so let's try to do that with like the jean vests and the fringe and the tights, and um, kind of do that. But also when we're in the ring, we do '80s wrestling moves. So it's kind of like a mix of both. Um, and then throwing in the Hill Valley and the 16 candles and all that other stuff that just kind of adds a little bit more to it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I do enjoy like single stars and wrestlers and all that stuff, but I think an underrated way for people to get over and people enjoy pro wrestling is tag team wrestling. What did you say you liked more during your career, singles or tag?
I think I like tag because I could do more. Unless I was like in a certain level of not to say like not to be like whatever, but if I'm in a main event level as a single, I like that. But if I'm not there, I'd rather be in a tag. Because I feel like that main event level, you kind of do that cookie cutter drama build to your match. There's a reason for your match usually too, because either you've got a feud with some guy, or you're the champ, or you're trying to get the title. Um, so I like that part of the drama. But when it comes to tag team wrestling, I like that too because you just have so many more ways to build on that drama because now you have four guys that you can work with in that building that drama. You also have that guy that you can tag out if something, say you bump wrong or whatever, and you're hurting for a second, you can tag out. Or if you're, even hurt going into it, you can kind of protect yourself a little bit more and, make your career last longer because there's less bumps now that, I'm taking because I have a tag team partner. So we can kind of split a lot of the beating, I guess you could say. Um, but I mean, I was in a lot of tag teams. Like my first championship that I ever held was a tag team title um, with a guy by the name of Ty Street. I think was his name. Yeah, he used to wrestle around the Philly area, early 2000s. Um, we were in the Suicide Blondes. Wasn't long. I think I had the title one night, so it was very quick. But that was like my first that first championship ever in wrestling. And then I got placed in a tag team with Delicious. I want to
Oh,
say
I
in
remember D.
2003.
Shout out to D.
Yeah, so we were nutritious and delicious. We worked really well together. Uh, we were heels usually, so we would do a lot of like heel spots. Where we would get into compromising situations where you won't want to get into with another man in the ring, and the crowd would love it. Um, but we were also pretty vicious too. With I think one night we were wrestling some guys, and we're hanging Greg Matthews by his foot on a scaffolding and just kicking him and beating him down until we get his tag belts off him. And so it was we definitely had our vicious side to us too, but there was a little bit of comedy in there.
Did you nutritious and delicious? That's clever.
Yeah, well, at that point I was somewhat in shape, so it kind of made sense. We called our finishing move the protein shake. Um,
Eh.
so which later was used by I think Law of Resistance. It was like the little suplex twist thing. Um, and then I ended up teaming with a guy by the name of Jackpot Jimmy Jessup in PWE. Um, we teamed together probably for a year plus. We won their tag titles, I think, once or twice. Um, but there was always like a build of like animosity between us because eventually, we knew we would be breaking up when we lost the titles. He was just kind of one of those guys too that was very like he was like a dad guy. Like, like you have that angry dad that's like worked all day and is miserable. Like that's kind of how he was. Fun guy to an extent. Really good worker. Really good in the ring. Um, when he wanted to be. But yeah, it was kind of like he was just always like, oh, I guess we'll just do this if we have to, kind of thing. And so it was fun to work with him. I think we kind of fed off each other well with that style because he was like that, whereas I was more like kind of extroverted, which is weird because in my real life I'm not an extrovert at all, more of an introvert. But I would say in the wrestling back then I was probably more of an extrovert. But anyway, we won the tag titles there, lost them, and then I did a thing where I was trying to find a tag team partner to win the tag titles back. So I teamed with a couple of different people every show, and then we'd lose. Kind of the thing where I'm like, I gotta find a winning tag team partner, and eventually, lo and behold, the tag partner that I found there was Delicious, and We became Moneylicious over for PWE, and we won the tag belts there. And I think we were the last ones to have them because when they were shut down, like we were still the champs. So still champions.
There you go. Still champs, undefeated, if you will.
Yeah. And then the tag team with the '80s team. I think there was a time there too, team with Rob for a couple of shows. We were called the Show Savers. Um, team with Zarb, Damon Destruction a couple times. So yeah, I mean, tag team wrestling was just one of those things I was good at because it's not easy. Like even when I got into wrestling, I was like, how do guys do tag matches? But I think it's easy once you realize the psychology of a tag match. Because as long as you know the psychology, there's not really a lot of spot planning that you can do in a tag match because there's way too many guys to kind of keep everything on the same page. WWE does a good job with it because they have refs with lower pieces and that can kind of help guide the match a little bit. But it's not easy, especially on the independents, because you're teaming with somebody sometimes that um, you've never worked with before, and then you're wrestling guys that you've never worked with before either. So it's it can be difficult. But I think once you get the idea of the psychology of a tag match, it becomes a lot easier.
No, I 100% agree. I really enjoy tag team wrestling. It's probably one of my favorite things about pro wrestling. And it probably is because having a twin brother and an older brother, I think it'd be kind of cool to be in a tag team. And it just, unfortunately, it never came to be for me, but it always is fun for me to watch tag team wrestling. Do you think tag teams are becoming a lost art in pro wrestling?
I think it is in a way because you don't really have those guys that are like true tag teams as much anymore. With the matching gear and their identity is that tag team. And that's kind of what I tried to do with the '80s team thing. That was kind of our identity. That was our brand. So you don't really see that a lot nowadays. I think you see FTR, you see the guys in AEW in the pink. Um, the is it the Blade Runners? Is that their names?
Oh, the Blade Runners. Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. Yeah. So you have those guys. You got the Young Bucks. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of guys out there that are really doing the real tag team now. Is there anybody in WWE right now that's doing like they're like
Not that,
matching gear and all that stuff?
not that I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anybody. I mean, the Usos, that's probably about it, right?
Yeah. And also, I would also like to say, who is your favorite tag team?
I think I have different ones for different times and different reasons. Maybe
That's
we can do a Mount Rushmore tag teams.
sure,
Maybe.
sure.
So I would definitely say Heart Foundation
Oh, that's a good one.
be up there. Demolition would be up there. The Rockers, I feel would be up there for me. And fourth one, I don't know, that's a tough one. I want to say Brainbusters.
Oh, Arn and Tully.
Yeah, just because just the psychologists on such a different level, and it didn't need to be then, but they just were.
No,
Um,
they definitely are my tag team Mount Rushmore.
yeah, but to say that's probably my tag team, Mount Rushmore. Like maybe Legion of Doom would have been there, but I also feel like the other guys probably. I think Legion of Doom was big because they were just badasses at a time that wrestling didn't have that quite yet. They had the shoulder pads and they just had this unique look. And I can remember being a kid, not even knowing WCW what it was, but I bought the video game of WCW on Nintendo because the Road Warriors on the covers with those big spikes in the face paint. Um, but when it came to in the ring, I'm more of I want to see what you can do in the ring and the psychology that you have in the ring. Like that's why I picked those teams instead because I like the psychology that those guys have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I got to throw the Steiner brothers in there as well,
Yeah,
just simply
yeah,
because I think they're kind of, well, obviously they're a brother tag team, legit brother tag team, I should say, but
yeah.
they wrestled. They were like old school traveling like champions back in the day. Like they literally wrestled everywhere, including Japan, and they were having amazing matches with anybody. So the Steiner brothers have got to be in that category.
Yeah, yeah, I would say Steiner Brothers. I would say honorable mention would be probably, or Warriors and Steiner Brothers for me. Because I can't really think of anybody else that I would like, want to. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say the Nasty Boys were there, but in a way, in the gimmick, there were some things that I took from them with the '80s team because we were kind of that. We weren't. I mean, we looked a lot better than the Nasty Boys, but physically, but we just had that kind of vibe to us a little bit. Um, so I would say them, and trying to think anybody else that kind of sticks out, but yeah, I don't think. I
I
mean, tag
also,
team were definitely a lost art for sure.
yeah, and I would also throw in Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens. Oh, even Stevens and Patterson. There were some great tag teams.
Yeah, so I like the gimmick tag team though, like the guys with the matching gear, like like if kids are watching them, the kids might not know their names, but they know they're the Rockers, and they know that those guys are the Heart Foundation. Like they may not know who's Brett, who's whatever, like, but they know those guys are the Heart Foundation. Kind of like football teams. Like half the people that have their favorite football team, they probably can name half the players on the team. But it's the team. Like that's what they like. The team, the mascot, the gimmick of the team.
No, I agree with that. I would also throw with like even with factions in pro wrestling, like people they all dress differently. You don't always see people dressed the same or at least have the same color schemes, you know?
Yeah, actions are a little bit different. I feel like they've been overdone nowadays, especially with AEW early on. But I feel like they did them well early on. Was to help build stars because you got to think there's a lot of guys today that we're watching on AEW that nobody knew 6 years ago, but because they were in a faction with Chris Jericho or whatever, now they're kind of stars. So I think that's the best way to use a faction really is to build up other people.
Do you think that's what's missing too? Is that people are like, oh, we got a faction, just keep them together without really trying to build anybody or try to put somebody else over?
Yeah, because I don't really know if there really are many factions today, right? Like not in WWE anyway. Um, Maybe you got the Bloodline, and you've got Division, but Division's kind of you know everybody's getting hurt. Um, yeah, I'm drawing a blank for a lot of the. I mean, you got Cesaro. What's the guy's name?
Claudio?
Otis. Otis. You got Otis there. Oh yeah, so AEW has the Blackpool
Oh, Death Riders, yeah.
Death Riders. Yeah, so they have them, and I think they have like the conglomerate, that kind of stuff, but they don't really do a lot of stuff together. Like the Death Riders do. Like they always are together. Um, but maybe that's what it is too. Like you don't see a lot of the factions like do stuff together as much anymore either.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I always enjoyed that part. Like heck, even though I'm not too big on the NWO, but at least they stayed together. Or I should say you always saw them together. They never were like separate.
Well, I think the in-ring promos is what's missing, right? Like, because you figure that's when you would see DX together. That's when you would see the NWO together. Um, that's when you see Evolution together and the Horsemen together. Was in the promos, right? So, like, I think that's what they're missing is a lot of the in-ring promos. I think Death Rider gets some with Moxley gets some in-ring promos every once in a while, but really, there's not a lot of in-ring promos going on as much anymore with factions, anyway.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate though too because I think it's a simple concept to like help people get over or at least get the point across.
Yeah. Well,
But
the
let's
formula is you got one star and put a bunch of people with that star. Now those people are stars.
yeah, and it
But you,
doesn't
but you
always
got to show them with those stars on a
yeah,
constant basis.
no, absolutely. And like also maybe it just help maybe get them some shine every once in a while too. That way it will maybe give the main guy some rest.
Yeah.
Because if you look at some like say for example the four horsemen, like back in the day, they would get brutalized in some of these matches with like guys like the Road Warriors, or they would be in the war games, and so these guys would be all beat up, but they're like, that's okay, we at least have JJ.
Yeah.
And he can
I,
help come in, cut a promo, and then just help carry the story on.
But you got to think like the star of the stable or the faction is kind of like the final boss. The final boss is it's legit. When The Rock says he's final boss, like that's it's a final boss in a video game. That's what you build up to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't really see that happening too often nowadays. But do you think it's also because a lot of people, like you said, are getting hurt and not able to stay up right all the time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't understand why there's so many people getting hurt in WWE as much lately. I mean, they're wrestling less. I mean, maybe that's the problem. Like maybe they're not getting as many reps in, and but, I mean, it seems like it's happening a lot more lately.
And hope and pray they'll recover well, though, because you don't wish anyone to get hurt in the ring. It is a tough business.
Yeah, and who knows? It could be some of these people are getting hurt for stuff that guys worked through in the past. Uh, Not that they should, but they did in the '90s. A lot of this stuff, but
Well,
also
yeah,
too, they don't wrestle nowadays like guys did in the '90s.
yeah, not to mention like back in the even earlier days than that, if you didn't work, you didn't get paid.
Yeah.
But speaking of, not being able to work, you know, like you said, it's been a while since you've had your last match. Like, if you don't mind me asking, how that all came about.
Um. Well, like I said, I had back problems even as a kid, which eventually developed into neck issues. I want to say there might have been a match in late 2003 that I got dropped on my head. And at that point, I started to have some neck issues, some, stuff down the arms and stuff. They checked it out. It was healing itself. It was fine. So I didn't really need to have like any surgeries then or anything. But they did tell me eventually, if you keep wrestling, you're probably gonna, eventually need a surgery. So I think it was, let's say like 2016 ish and 2015. 2015, I started to have issues with my hip and my left leg, and that turned out to be issues from my upper to lower back, or mid back to lower back. Had some loss of space between the vertebrae. Not necessarily herniated disc yet, but definitely loss of space. So there's pressure on those nerves whenever stuff starts to swell up. And then I already had like a little bit of a problem in my neck. And I remember being at the gym one day and I was doing a military press and like I constantly would crack my neck, and twist it around and pop it or whatever. And I popped it once and it was just constant pain down my arm. And it just didn't really let up at that point ever. Because I've been in situations where I had that and then I go to the chiropractor, they pop him back in, I'd be good to go. This time it wasn't the case. Like I went to several chiropractors, even the one that was usually able to get me popped back into place. And he had said, it's probably not going to happen this time. Like it's too much at this point. Um, did some therapy. Nothing got better. I was waking up at night with my hand was bending itself backwards like this in my sleep from the nerves, I guess, being
Jeez.
affected. So I'd wake up feeling like my hands were going to tear in here. So I'd have to pull my hands back together. But anytime I laid on my back or tilted my head back, there'd just be problems down my left arm. So eventually, I got an MRI. They found two herniated discs in my neck, C4, 5, and 6 were herniated, which a lot of them kind of control your bicep and runs down to part of your hand as well. They said let's do some epidurals first, so I did two epidurals to see if that would fix it. Because that can kind of bring down the swelling a little bit around the nerve, even though the herniated disc is still there. Maybe the swelling would come down enough to where it's not bothering the nerve. And that's probably what happened before with, the chiropractor when he could fix it. It wasn't out as much and there wasn't as much inflammation as there was, now. So got the shots. They didn't help at all. And I mean, even before the shots, I was asking the guy about wrestling. He said if you can go like 1 year without symptoms, you might be able to wrestle again. after these shots. And I said, okay. And so I was, very optimistic. But then I think after the second shot, that's when he told me, like, hey, if that first shot didn't do anything for you, like, this isn't going to probably do anything for you either. He's like, I almost don't want to do it, but you have to do it in order to go to the next stage. So, like, in order to get your insurance to cover surgery, you have to have at least two shots. Um, and the shots were like, I hated doing the shots more than I hated the surgery because they basically put like a fish hook into your shoulder and then run the medicine into your neck. And then you just feel the pressure pushing on your neck, like
Mm.
this like wire in your neck. And they numb you. It's like you don't feel pain, but the pressure is just, it's makes you sick. Um, but anyway, after the shots, went back to the doctor. He had said, "Hey, if you don't, get this fixed, your hand's gonna end up losing, usage." So I said, "Well, it only really bothers me when I tilt my head back." And they're like, "Well, you tilt your head back when you go to sleep. Like you tilt your head back for a lot of things. So you need to have that fixed." So we discussed. He gave me the option of just doing one level because the one level was the worst one. That was the C5, C6, which is what Kevin Owens just had fixed actually. And that was the worst level because that was the one that was going down the left side. But the one above it was starting to go down the right side. And he said, if you get just one taken care of now, like it might give you more mobility now and a quicker recovery, but you're probably gonna have to come back in a couple years to get the next one done. He said, you just want to do them both. And I said, yeah, let's just do them both. So um, he did them both. He avoided having too much hardware in there too. I guess now the insurance companies make you put a bracket on the front. They didn't put a bracket on the front of mine, so it allows me to have a little bit more mobility than other people. Like when I go to chiropractors now, like they're like, I wouldn't have known that you had a fusion if you didn't tell me. Just with how much your neck moves around. So that's one good thing out of it. Like I'm always a little cautious though, because I'm like, is my neck weaker because I don't have that bracket? But apparently bone's pretty strong though, and that's what they did. They took out my discs. They took these little what they call cages. They filled them up with some powder from my bones and with some kind of compound, and that basically caused the bones to build between where the discs used to be. So I have like one big vertebrae in the middle of my neck, and then a bunch of smaller vertebrae around it.
Jeez, man, that's and how long has it been since you tried to rehab everything?
Um, I think that I had the surgery in June of 2017, so about 9 years since I had it done. I actually tripped and fell during my recovery, and I was having trouble breathing, so they sent me to the hospital, and they did a CAT scan of everything, and it was like September. I did surgery in June, and the idea was maybe look at doing physical therapy starting in like maybe December at that point. But when I fell, they saw on the CAT scan that my bones were already healing. So I went to like physical therapy like three months earlier than I should have. Or what they planned, I would have went. So I was recovering quickly from it.
No, that's awesome, and I'm glad to hear that. But if you don't mind me asking, how long did it take for you to like come to peace that you couldn't wrestle anymore?
Um, I think it still hasn't come to peace with it because there's still times when I'm looking at like wrestling boots and getting new tights and shit, and just like thinking about doing, a couple more matches or whatever. I mean, the only thing holding me back now, my neck is good. There's my low back, going back to, when I started having problems there. It's it's not bad to like live with, but if I start walking around too much, I stand too much, doing the dishes standing over the dishes too much, it starts to flare up a little bit. Or if I'm sitting on a floor, it starts to flare up a little bit. Um, so the minute I start like rotating my body too much, it'll flare up. Um, so that's what kind of keeps me from wrestling because the minute I go in there and start punching people, I'm going to start getting pain in my hip and down my leg and in my stomach, and it doesn't feel great.
Nah, man. And what have you been doing to try to help ease the pain?
Well, like I said, it only bothers me when I do those certain things. I try to avoid doing those things, but uh, but I want to be able to do some of those things, right? Like I used to love to go do boxing classes, and I can't. necessarily do that now because I rotate too much. I'll start to get issues. So I would like to do that again, but I mean, right now it's just kind of trying to build the core up more to support it. Um, maybe do some inversion because I remember when I was wrestling on a regular basis, I always had an inversion table at home, which I got rid of that whenever I moved or after my surgery because I didn't really need it as much anymore because I wasn't wrestling. But I think that's something that would probably help me too. Inversion, just get some space between the vertebrae. Um, but probably check into maybe an epidural, see if that helps. I haven't done that yet in my lower back, so maybe that's something to try. But I mean, right now it's chiropractic, massage, electric stimulation. That's pretty much how I keep mobile at this point.
Well, trying to be on a more positive note, do you have any happy memories or favorite memories of your time in wrestling?
It's like too many. Like I don't know. That's tough to say because different times are good for certain reasons. Um, yeah, I'd say like early on, I really liked wrestling a lot when I first started to kind of get into my groove of like I said, what type of match I was having, what my character was, all that stuff. I really enjoyed that time, um, and I wish sometimes maybe I would have allowed myself to enjoy it more and just take in the moment, kind of thing. I think some of us we just move through the motion of yeah, this guy's here, great, nice to meet you. But when you were a kid, you watched that guy, so I go back now and I think how many people I've met or worked with that I watched as a kid, and I just like totally took it for granted when I was doing it because I felt like this is just the next step to get here, kind of just in that mentality of getting ahead and getting better kind of thing. So yeah, I would say those memories are things that I wish I would have did more with. Like I can remember um, meeting Dylan introduced me to Scott Hall, and I loved Razor Ramon when I was a kid. Like I was a big Razor Ramon fan. I even when I would hand people my vest after before the matches, I would say something happened to this vest, something's going to happen to you, just like Razor would say to the gold. And at the time, I didn't even put the two and two together that he was Razor Ramon because I remember him to Scott Hall. So it's like that's how your brain works sometimes. Because like I would have thought, man, like I would have probably kicked myself and said, hey, go back there and talk to Scott Hall more. Like, what are you doing? Or Razor Ramon more.
Yeah, and Kent, speaking of Scott Hall, God rest his soul, can you believe it's been 30 years since the NWO started?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's something that will probably never happen again, in our lifetime, something like that.
Yeah, no, and especially, with the lack of kayfabe and, so much internet going on, spoiling everything.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing to that happening was the Cena heel turn, but they fumbled that. Nothing came of it. So, um, but yeah, there was like nothing that's gonna ever probably be like that again.
But, going back, like I said, about more positive things, you told me about before we recorded that you've been doing stuff on YouTube and have YouTube channels. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. It's Money Plays Retro. A lot of WWE 2K games right now. A lot of classic matches. So what I do is I build arenas for the creative community that are more 90s based, like ECW and your house and all the old superstars, Monday Night Raws and that kind of stuff. And I will put like old school matches that I play on the game. So there's a couple of new ones I just uploaded today that are I have one on there. It's Goldberg versus Psycho Sid at In Your House. So it's kind of like a what if Goldberg runs to WWE kind of thing. So a lot of stuff like that is on there. I'll probably get into some parlor games too. I have some content around the backrooms games that I'll be throwing up eventually too. And I'll probably be starting another channel here soon about kind of a road to a better conditioned me. So So be on the lookout for that as well.
No, absolutely. And what's the name of your gaming channel?
Money Plays Retro.
Money Plays Retro. So go subscribe, people. Well, it's going to be fun time if you love pro wrestling content. And with that being said, Jay Money, thank you so much for coming on. And honestly, man, it is so good to hear from you again, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah, same here. I know there's probably a ton of things we'll probably talk about, so maybe we'll do another one sometime soon.
Oh, I would be more than happy to have you back on, buddy.
I forget half the things that maybe I did sometimes. Like I'm on TikTok as well. Sometimes I'll post like workout videos on TikTok. The other day I posted some videos of different ECW guys that I wrestled and different WWE guys that I wrestled. So that's something to check out. That's Money Says 123 on TikTok. Um, but it's interesting because I forgot some of the WWE guys, and now I have to go back and redo it. So you kind of forget sometimes. Like that's what I mean. Like you're so focused when you're in it on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve that you take things for granted. So anybody that's in the wrestling business, don't take for granted the opportunities that you get to meet your heroes or people that you watch growing up or people that you want to learn from. Like be a fan, you know, it's okay. Most of them understand. Um, just don't hound them, you know, don't talk to your up, but you know, take advantage of that time that you have with these people because you're probably never going to get it again.
No, amen to that. That's very well said. You know, we could probably talk about that some other time as well, bud. But once
Yep.
again, thank you so much for coming on my show, man. I appreciate everything you've done for me as well, and more than you realize. Trust me.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
No, hey, man, and I hope and pray nothing but the best for you and your recovery and your channels. And to all of you watching, I love you all, and God bless. Be safe, everybody.